Classic, vintage sounding samples are timeless. They can be used in any genre and are becoming more and more popular in today's music, especially in hip hop. Being able to create these old, vintage sounding samples, as well as knowing how to chop them the right way, are super valuable skills to have as a producer in today's music era. Here's a couple of vintage samples we've made recently. So today we're going to be cooking up one of these vintage samples from scratch so that by the end of this video, you'll know how to create these samples. And as we create the sample, we're going to be dropping source, some crazy techniques we like to use. So let's get into it.
The 5 elements that we think make a really good vintage sample. Firstly, we've got a piano or an E-piano. We've got some sort of a bass, a guitar, a vocal. We're going to show you in this video how to use your own voice for this. And then strings, bells, and other textural sounds that just fill up and bring the samples together. There's going to be lots of layers there. It's going to be sounding very full, almost like a song. And that is the point of making these kinds of samples. When you hear samples being flipped and used in today's hip-hop music, majority of the time it's like songs from the 60s, 70s, 80s being flipped. So we're trying to create the soulful song type of vibe with these samples that you can then flip later on and you won't have any issues with clearance, as well as just having the sick sounding sample that you can use in itself. Today we're going to start with the piano.
MIDI keyboard.
MIDI keyboard. You're going to be playing it in if you can. If you can't play piano, we're going to show you some different chords that you can use. We're just going to tinker around on the keyboard and try to come up with something. We just got this piano from Labs, soft piano. It sounds cool. It's like a soulful kind of sound. I'm just gonna record. What I do here is I put on, if you're on FL, Edison, and then you record and it goes straight into an audio, and then you can just chop up the best parts. And that way you don't have to quantize. You can just get the realistic sound.
Whenever we start these samples, always start with a nice slow BPM. Later on, we're going to pitch it up and speed it up. So if you start at a low BPM, it's going to sound way better. So we're going to start at 86.
So I'm just gonna open this up. All right, there we go.
But what's the reason you don't use the MIDI?
Well, when you record into an audio track, you can't change the notes because you're on the MIDI. So you're forced to chop it up where you need to.
And it has that natural human feel.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna go through this, get the best parts, chop it up. Got this 16 bar loop. Gonna go through and record some high notes.
I can hear a vocal already and a guitar. As you progress in the sample, you'll hear something, and the worst thing you can do is not try it.
Yeah,
you know?
Alright, so got more piano there, countermelodies, same thing. I'm just gonna go through, let's chop it up. Just chopped up some of these things just to put them slightly more in time. No quantizing really. Gonna leave this piano, we're gonna move on to...
I've got a vocal idea.
So let's put a vocal down.
Right, so I came up with this idea when Sean was chopping up the pianos. For the vintage samples, we think it's important to write down some lyrics, so I've written down some lyrics. When you think about it, the old vintage samples were sampled from original songs that had proper lyrics, so that's kind of why we do it. Is you my baby, my dear, weaken my heart just to rip it apart.
So we'll do that one again,
Time heals, they say, but I can't wait too long. As you can hear, the lyrics are just kind of lovey stuff that tends to work for this. Alright, cool. I'm gonna let Sean King do some processing, chop it up. Want to know so bad. Time heals, they say, but I long. Is you my baby? So bad. Time heals, they say.
The thing with the samples is this vocal's not going to stay at this pitch anyway, so it's mainly just to clean it up, make sure everything's in time. You want to keep it as natural as possible in these early stages before you start to flip it. I can reuse the real bass for this, it's like smooth.
If you don't have a bass, you can use a guitar and then pitch it down 12 semitones, or one shots or a VST bass works just as good. When you do pitch it up, bass sounds so sick in these sample chops.
For example, there's just a random bass one shot I searched up. Happened to be from our Alchemy. We've used this lots in samples. VST, guitar, bass, whatever you got. Alright, so I'm just go through, chop up these things, make a few different patterns. Alright, now I'm going to stem everything out and start doing something. Alright, so everything's stemmed out, so I'm going to render this out. After exported all that out, was just sort of laying it out here. It's sounding alright, but I ended up just clicking through the sample, found this little chop, so I'm just going to expand on this. I'm liking where this is going. Alright, so I got a little 4-bar piano thing down, so I'm just going to keep this as a bass. And I'm just going to take more layers from the stems here. I'm just going to implement it into this new sort of sample chop thing. Got a cool little loop thing going on here. Kind of want another vocal though. So I'm going to go into the Aura vocal bundle. Our only vocal bundle that we've released. There's just heaps of sick vocals in here.
You can see how Sean's just sticking with the sample and he keeps trying to change things around. He hasn't given up yet and now it's starting to sound crazy. Even when things don't sound amazing, if you stick with things, the results are on the other side of that period of just banging your head against the wall.
Alright, this is sounding pretty sick. We're nearing the end. We're about to completely flip it with the BPM and key. It's about to get even better. The finale, just arranging the sample, finding the right pitch, BPM, let's go.
have a result. That's been a bit of a journey to get there, but that's how it is sometimes. Vintage, sampley, a pretty good result just for having no idea at the start, and now a whole sample pretty much. You saw all the crazy techniques. What are we gonna call it as well?
We can come up with a name after we've listened. Well, this may not necessarily be the final layout, the 5 layers of the checklist, all there.
Let's hear the sample back. If you missed our last cook up, you can watch it here. But cheers for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.